So in witnessing and oscillating between these extremities of myself, between the deep scarcity patterns of my lack of self-worth and of my unworthiness when it comes to abundance, specifically with finances, which has been something that has plagued me, or which I've allowed to plague me for the longest time. Pretty much my whole life. I am realizing that there is some part of me which wants to do things how I have always done them, and which has brought this idea to Costa Rica that I could just bring my typewriter and I could busk kind of like a bum and make my money that way, in a way that would be abundant, because it is rooted in my gift, in the gift of my writing, and in the gift of the medicine and the medicinal guidance which I offer through my poetry and my writing. And there is abundance there. And there is truth there. And there is magnificence and magic there, which happens. People come up to me and there is such synchronicity in the poems that they ask me for. And it's as though I was writing them as much for themselves, for them, as for myself. And the guidance comes from my own heart to guide my heart home. But there is nevertheless this version of me that wants to just like cling to this idea that I can just set up a table on some roadside somewhere. And be like a street performer. I'm not a street performer. I'm not entertainment. I am not just some product of poetry which people can buy for the sake of their pleasure, which I often embody when people request certain poems from me, which is fine. I have witnessed in the past few days myself realizing that Costa Rica is more expensive than I anticipated. And my mind is like, oh my God, we better go back to San Francisco, even though we hate being there, because we know that the streams of income can come from our poetry there, and we'll fucking make it work over there, even though it sucks. Because it is safe, it is comfortable, it comes with a knowledge of what I can expect and the quote-unquote security that comes with that. Whereas here, I'm being asked to dive into the mystery, dive into the abyss of my being. My goodness, this forest is magnificent. And to recognize that financial abundance, or abundance in itself, which is innate alignment with divine purpose and with life, so that natural bloom can take place. I am being invited by God to have the time, create the time and space to not retreat and cling to the ways of making money which have felt safe, which have felt secure, which have felt predictable, which have felt comfortable. I am instead being asked to go deep inside of my body and to rewire myself to feel innate abundance from within, so that the mirror of my reality can reflect that back to me and amplify both the abundance of the medicine which I do carry and offer through my poetic gifts, through my gifts of perception, through the the language breaths which I invoke in my poetry and in my voice embodiments. As well as to feel those places within me which are actually rooted in worthlessness or perceived, misperceived worthlessness, unworthiness, pain, trauma, sorrow. I am being asked to dive into those places and to discern with my free will that which is authentic to the truth of my soul and that which is not. That which is actually a drain upon my soul, that which is actually an energetic leak, that which is something that has felt comfortable for, oh my God, that pelican, felt comfortable for decades and perhaps even lifetimes and eons of reincarnation within this ancestral stream of being which I am. I am not merely this human body. I am not merely this currently individuated soul. I am everything that I have ever been and ever will be. I don't even know what I'm saying, but I'm allowing the guidance to flow through me for my own self and for anyone who needs such guidance. And I'm tuning in to the most mystical jungle and ocean energy that I have probably felt in my entire life this lifetime. What was I saying? That I cannot live in a way that frees me from the shackles of my scarcity, even if it be through the abundance of my words and my poetry and my language gifts. I cannot live from the innate abundance which these contain if I am still clinging desperately, comfortably to the scarcity patterns which have long prevented them from coming into actual and full fruition. So I am being asked specifically, as these discomforts emerge, as the scarcity patterns run certain mental scripts within my being, like I am going to die because I am not going to have enough money, I am going to be stuck in Costa Rica, I'm not going to be able to pay for food, I'm not this, I'm not that. My mind is lying to me because it wants to stay comfortable. I'm going to get caught by the tide. But these scripts and these discourses and these patterns of scarcity are presenting themselves so that they can be heard. They are a pain stored within my body that are actually trying to express something deeper than what mere words are trying to say. Mere words being the scripts and loops within my mind, within my brain, within the patterns of my being, which just repeat themselves over and over and over again to try to get a point across. So the point is that these forms of self-deceit, these forms of scarcity patterns which are presenting themselves to me, which I will say just for detail, I hope that my channel is just serving you, that it's not too scattered, that it is coherent. Let me bring coherence. But, parenthesis, when I was just arriving to Costa Rica and I got to the apartment that I was staying in, not an apartment, a little fucking shack in a very remote and poor area, and it was just not the vibe. When I got there, it got really dark with the things that my mind was trying to tell me about how worthless I am, about how there's no way that this can work, about how stupid and foolish I was financially to put myself in this situation where I might be stuck in Costa Rica. These things are not true. I am perfectly capable, if I need to rationally be like, all right, now is the time to go back to the United States where there is that security, where there is that comfort, where there is that predictability. But here I am being asked to surrender to the mystery. Here I am being asked to dive into the unknown and to dive inward into the roots of the scarcity patterns which prevent the abundance from flowing. Some of the things and scripts that were said were like, I'm going to die today. And I'll be honest, like, for the sake of truth, there was like, I want to put an end to this. I want to kill myself. Like, some of these thoughts were emerging in the patterns of what I would say is akin to homelessness. In like staying in places that feel so antithetical to the abundance of my soul. This little broken down shack that was on the ocean, that was in a magnificent place in its own right, but just had this weird energy about it. And then in a hostel where it was like $20 for a room, I was like, I'll sleep there for a night. And just not knowing where I'm going next. And so, just so you know, I would never do such a thing. When I was hearing it, I wasn't even like considering it. It was more like, what part of me is like so self-destructive and so self-negating that it would rather put an end to it all than to face the discomforts that are happening here and now, which really aren't even that bad of discomforts. On the other side of that shadow work, on the other side of witnessing those scripts within my mind, letting them run their loops, I am able to go underneath them and to trace them both energetically and somatically within my body by way of feeling. What was I feeling there? I was feeling a lack of certainty. I was feeling a lack of comfort. I was feeling a desire to collapse and cry while having no place to do that. What I needed in that moment was a remote place where I could just cry and feel my way through my body so that it can heal. There is a magnificent hawk flying over there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's incredible. The point is, if you want true abundance, if I want true abundance, we must go within ourselves and allow ourselves to feel the abundance which we innately are, and to operate in reality as reality from that place, wherein I feel when I am in that abundant state, when I am allowing my channel to flow into linguistic song and breaths of self-liberation, which then ripples telescopically into liberation for others, I feel my reality generation field feels like I can touch anything and turn it into gold. It feels like I am in bloom with every flower that has ever bloomed into being. It feels like I am alive. It feels like life itself is living itself through me. It feels like I am the sun that is shining luminously upon and into the world. And I need to essentially go into my body, into the... My goodness, I've been talking lightning fast. Into the constituent fabric of my body, into the energetic substructure of my being, and to essentially weed out and turn into compost and self-nourishing soil all of those parts of me which are clinging to scarcity, which are clinging to death and self-negation. It was self-negation and death which presented themselves in the scripts and loops that were running in my scarcity-ridden brain. And so I feel those parts of myself energetically so deeply on the quantum level, and then I put those parts of me to death, and I nourish them, transmutation, alchemical reorientation into the abundance of my fruition and my soul's calling coming more deeply online. Now, what does that mean? That means I need to slow down. The more that I give myself and create time and space to feel my way ritualistically and prayerfully into that state of abundance, then I'm going to be operating in the world at that frequency, at that energetic signature, and the vibratory hymns of life, which will then be magnetized in coherence with my being, will then reflect back to me the energetic signature which I am embodying, and present itself in the form of opportunities that match the inner work of transmutation and alchemy and reorientation and resurrection which I have done within myself, and the abundance principles which flow and emanate from the luminosity of my soul here more deeply embodied, at the expense of renouncing all of those parts of me which are scarce and dying, then the mirror of my reality will reflect back to me the infinitude of my abundance. And this may very well be simply a perceptive shift, wherein when I went to Guatemala, I was in scarcity. Oh my God, this sweet little pupper. Hello, hello. Oh my gosh, hi. I love pups. I was in absolute scarcity, and so some part of my higher self felt he needs to go and see the extremity of the scarcity to which he clings, so that he can witness himself and the parts of himself that he is allowing to dictate and guide the perceptive stream of his life. I have since, with an erupting volcano, left Guatemala and arrived to Costa Rica, where there were still some scarcity patterns presenting themselves, but for the most part, it feels like there is this absolutely untouched, well, it is touched in some ways, but there is so much abundance of jungle energy that can breathe and that can abound and that can simply be in this untouched primordial wildness of divine alignments with divinity, with God and the primordial goddess of the wild. And that is the mirror that I am being offered here in Costa Rica. And I haven't yet found the really, well, the fruit abundance is a complicated story, which we're going to get into and out of at another time. Let us just say that the ways in which there are false powers that be, which control our food systems, which reach really deep and go into even the smallest of villages. People are still drinking Coca-Cola here in Costa Rica, and I'm like, ah! Shaking the prison bars open. What was I saying? The mirror of Costa Rica, the invitations into initiation, which I am feeling into, and which I am diving into, and which I felt into before I ever came here, they are coming online. And I am following those threads faithfully towards the abundance of my soul, which I can feel innately within myself, irrespective of the question of little pieces of paper that are called currency in this reality. I am being asked to feel into the true currency of the innate abundance of God, Goddess, the earth, and all life, here on earth and outside of earth. Transcendental life, transcendental truth, absolute innate abundance, expansive, conscious, living, breathing breaths of God. And that in itself, I am cultivating as the cornerstone of my being, and remembering how to simply be in remembrance of that which I truly am. Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that because I'm getting back to my bike and it feels like a good stopping point. And I've been talking a lot, so now I'm gonna focus on breathing and internalizing everything which I've just told to you and to myself. These are things I didn't really know, but now I've processed them, and so I can take them into my home and now feel them somatically within my being. What were the energetic undercurrents within my body which wish to then be integrated somatically, so that these are not merely floating mental aerial words, but become the truth embodied of my soul and body here and now, here in this lifetime, here on earth. So I not only speak about them, but I embody their truth and emanate their truth into reality. So, time to go ritualize that. I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you. Wait, I'm gonna let these pelicans fly over my head, but I'm not gonna say a word. Goodbye. Love you.